on this since I've known her. Before I knew her, she's been working on it. And it's a working copy of the film, so you'll see a couple of directions for editors and corrections and that kind of thing. But it's a good documentary. It's 59 minutes. Please enjoy her work.
When Rachel was telling me that she couldn't tell anybody about her cystic fibrosis, it made me really mad. Really angry at her parents and angry at her community. It was so eye-opening for me. I didn't know anything about the Orthodox community. You know, I was brought up Jewish in a sense. I mean, I didn't have a bat mitzvah. We never went to synagogue. Jewish but secular.
4 years ago, Andrea Eisenman could only dream of doing something like running in the park. In fact, she was running out of time. Cystic fibrosis was killing her.
I spent about 6 hours a day doing therapy, inhalations, chest therapy.
She's competing in the U.S. Transplant Games this week in Minneapolis, where every athlete has had an organ transplant.
Yeah, okay.
It's hard to understand what living with CF is like unless you have it yourself. And we bonded over that. Rafa and I have lived our entire lives just 15 miles apart, me in Manhattan and she in Brooklyn. But where I grew up knowing I had CF since I was 3, in Bracha's Orthodox Jewish community, it's a long-standing tradition that you keep any disease a secret. And genetic diseases especially are a source of shame for the whole family.
This is today's combination. Every day is a new combination. Okay, so in here is supposed to be clothing. So I have clothing in here, but I also have my daily stuff like my saline while I do therapy. And this goes in my nebulizer. I'm a little pharmacy in my house. So I have like anything under the sun, any antibiotic my doctor calls me and says, a start Cipro, I don't have to run to the pharmacy. I'll find it.
Right, unless you have it yourself. And we bonded over that.
Well, the reason for our gathering today couldn't be more heartbreaking, but it's also a true honor to be here and to be meeting so many of the wonderful souls Andrea's told me about over our 4 decades of friendship. She was surrounded by love. She was love. And to be honest, I still can't believe I'm talking about her in the past tense. I feel her in my body and hear her in my mind, guiding me, teasing me, and sharing updates, opinions, advice, recommendations, and of course, laughter. My name is Lisa Milberg, or some of you may know me, Lisa from Florida. Though I moved to South Florida in 2000, I met Andrea in the late 1980s in Midtown Manhattan, where we worked together as part of the creative advertising team at HarperCollins College Publishers. Andrea and I agreed, along with the hundreds of other folks that we worked with at Harper, that that particular work experience was extraordinary. We were young, we were at the top of our games artistically, we were energetic, and most importantly, we were friends, real friends, and as it's now been proven, friends for life. Everyone at HarperCollins in those days was fun, funny, real, hardworking, literate, and literary. Though we all eventually went on to do other things, and were largely happy doing them, no other work experience has ever compared to that one. I'm so blessed to have been a part of that, and I'm so grateful to have met, worked with, and gotten to know our Andy in the process. She was magical, and loving her and being loved by her has been life-changing in all the best ways. In October of 2023, actually just a few hours before the October 7th massacre in Israel, Andrea and I had a date in Manhattan. We saw each other a few times a year, either in New York, where my family resides, or in Florida, where hers does. I'd carved out that particular weekend to visit and see my former HarperCollins friends. Andrea cleared the whole weekend for me, and she took me to see a Broadway show with a limited run, Melissa Etheridge's My Window. Now, what you need to know first is that Andrea liked, but didn't particularly love Melissa Etheridge. Nevertheless, she knew that I'm a fan, so she was happy, in traditional Andy fashion, to put me first. But that's not why I'm telling you this story. I'm sharing it because right before the theater went dark, I spied former Today's Show co-anchor Katie Couric in the theater. After Andy and I spent a few minutes deliberating whether or not that was Katie, because I swear to God, she looked exactly the same as when she'd been on the Today Show, Katie sat right in front of us. At intermission, I whispered to Andy, I want to thank her for all the good work she's done, especially regarding colon and breast cancer awareness. Andy was polite, but horrified. This is New York, she reminded me. We leave celebrities alone. Well, I usually took Andy's advice. After all, she was crazy wise and a New Yorker through and through, but not this time. After all, it wasn't like I could talk to Katie some other time. And you guys, she was so nice. She asked my name and she introduced me to her friends. So there, Andy. Okay, I'm also not sharing this story to let you know that I met and talked to Katie Couric, even though that was really cool. I'm sharing this because whenever I have the chance, I tell people I admire what they mean to me. I told Andy all the time, and she used to say, save it for my eulogy. So here we are. The day before she passed, Andrea asked to speak with me on the phone, a gift, incidentally, I know is more for me than for her. I asked her if she really wanted me to write and deliver a eulogy in her honor. Sure, she said, her voice low and hoarse, her breathing labored. Why don't you give it a shot? So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to tell you what I told her that day and what I said to her many times before she passed. For starters, I truly didn't know how to explain Andrea to people who didn't know her. I'm sure we've all experienced this, right? She was so wonderful and so uncannily strong that when I described her to other people, it sounded like I was either exaggerating or delusional. Listen, Lee, I'm no saint, she'd often say with a laugh. Between us, I'm not so sure. She was someone who lived a lifetime with a horrible, progressive, terrifying, painful illness, one that required constant attention and management, but she wasn't at all defined by it. She had CF, but she wasn't CF. Of course, every time we talked and saw each other, I'd ask her what was up and how she was doing, and she'd fill me in, but then she'd very quickly change the subject, usually to ask me what was going on in my world. It sounds crazy, but sometimes I'd almost forget that she was ill because our friendship wasn't at all about CF, or diabetes, or cancer. It was about everything else. Our families, our friends, places we went or wanted to go, home decorating, books, movies, dogs, work, art, volunteering, and one of our favorites, people behaving badly. I will also confess to you that I often complained to her. When one of our mutual friends pondered who in the world would ever complain to Andrea, the answer was me. And here's why. Andrea was one of my best friends. I didn't tiptoe around her or pretend that whatever I was going through wasn't happening just because she was enduring something hard. She was a full, complex friend. She was multidimensional. I shared what was going on in my life with her, and when I whined, which I often did, she was legitimately compassionate and always followed up. A lot of people told Andrea that she was the strongest person they'd ever met. I certainly did many, many times. But she always responded somewhat dismissively. Thanks, she'd say, but I wish I wasn't. I wish I didn't have to be. I have no choice. And certainly that was true too. In order to live as well as she could for as long as she did, she had to undergo more than most people could imagine in the forms of self-care, doctor's visits, terrifying surgeries, agonizing recoveries, and advocating for herself. But that said, there were many other things that Andrea was and did that she did not have to do or be. And that, I think, is what made her so extraordinary. She didn't have to be an amazing wife, daughter, sister, cousin, colleague, and friend. She didn't have to rescue and adore countless canines. She didn't have to participate in and win a medal in the Transplant Olympics. She didn't have to volunteer and advocate for other CF and transplant patients. She didn't have to paint, design, or create an incredible film, which I haven't seen in a while, but of course she could bowl. I didn't even know she could bowl until just now. Like, of course she's good at that too. She didn't have to read, see movies and shows, and be the first person a lot of us would call for recommendations of all kinds. She didn't have to be an amazing hostess and a fabulous cook. She didn't have to be so independent and brave in well-rounded ways. She didn't have to be hilarious and thoughtful and generous, no matter how she was feeling physically. Andrea had to be strong in the context of her illness, yes, but she didn't have to do the thousands of other things she did to enrich her own and other people's lives. She was, I have to say, pretty damn saint-like. My nickname for Andy was Puppet, or Marion, which was short for marionette. This is because when she laughed hard, and she often did, especially when telling or listening to a funny or especially an embarrassing story, her arms would fly in the air, almost as if they were independent from the rest of her. But make no mistake, Andrea could not be manipulated. She was tough. She'd call out unacceptable behavior. She'd ask the hard questions. She'd say the uncomfortable things. She wasn't to be taken advantage of. She was small, but she was also, and I mean this in the most flattering way possible, a total badass. I learned a lot from Andrea, lessons that I want to share with you because I know she would be proud and happy if we all lived by them. Number one, aging is a gift. Please don't get caught up in petty things like graying hair, growing bald, or wrinkles. That stuff is supposed to happen to us if we are lucky. Number two, take care of yourself. If Andrea could spend hour upon hour every day testing her blood, taking pills, doing breathing treatments, exercising, and eating right, we can all squeeze in time for a walk, a healthy meal, and a good night's sleep. Andrea never wanted to look back and regret that she ignored her health in any way. She was compliant. You should be too. Go to the doctor. Get your blood work drawn. Get your vaccines. Get your mammogram and colonoscopy done. And advocate for yourself. It is necessary. Number three, take care of those you love. Remind your people that they matter to you in big and small ways every chance you get. Friendship requires ongoing work. Do the work. Number four, experience life, whatever that means to you. Travel if you can, but if you can't, travel vicariously by listening to other people, reading, and indulging in the arts. Number five, be a friend to the animals and to the environment. Adopt, don't shop. Number six, if something reminds you of someone, tell them. It could be a movie, a book, a funny memory, a meal. Let people know what they mean to you and that they're on your mind. Do this often. Number seven, understand that everyone has struggles, some that you can see, some that you cannot. Always lead with compassion. Whatever you're going through, ask other people how they're doing too. Number eight, don't ever stereotype people or make assumptions based on an illness or disability. No one is or should be defined by something they can't control and didn't ask for. This, of course, also goes for age, race, religion, appearance, sexual identity, and sexual orientation. Happy Pride. If you're willing and eligible, please give blood, plasma, platelets, marrow, or become an organ donor. We're often asked to open our wallets for charity, but saving lives with our bodies is a whole different, truly holy form of giving. Speaking of which, I'd be remiss if I didn't thank all of you for always being there for our girl. That includes her parents, with a special shout out to her beloved mom, Helen, her husband, Steve, who is as kind and tough as she was, her lung donor and her donor's family, and her incredible doctors and other medical staff. Andrea's life was doubled thanks to all of you. I'm also so grateful to those of you who called, visited, and sat with Andy in the hospital during the final months before she passed, like our mutual best friend, Zena Scarpula. It was hard for Andy to talk, but I know she appreciated your gestures of time, effort, and love more than she could say. I've told a few of you that there's a song that reminds me of Andrea. It's from the musical Wicked, and the title is For Good. It's a duet sung by two true friends just as they are about to part ways. I can't listen to it without bawling because it reminds me so much of Andrea and what I shared with her. I know that each of you feels this as well. It well may be that we will never meet again in this lifetime. So let me say before we part, so much of me is made from what I learned from you. You'll be with me like a handprint on my heart. And now whatever ways our stories end, I know you have rewritten mine by being my friend. Because I knew you, Andrea Gail Eisenman Downey, my puppet, and my amazing otherworldly friend, I have been changed for good. Thank you.
So I'm a D, and I had the privilege of being one of Andy's cousins, though technically, my mom and Andy were second cousins, which means their grandparents were siblings from Vienna, but my mom will tell you more about that later. But if you do the math, my brothers and I are actually third cousins with Trixie the dog. But in our family, titles have never really mattered. What mattered is the love and connection spanning generations, stretching across states and deepening over time. Andy and us grew up loving the same people, our families. Tante Annie, her grandmother, who taught me how to blow smoke rings and play a ruthless game of gin rummy. Uncle Robert, Aunt Jean, who brought laughter and warmth to every family gathering, especially in Hampton Bays. And of course, the 5 o'clock gin. It wasn't optional, it was sacred. Andy's mother, Helly, what can I say? Everybody probably knows her. Brilliant, witty, sharp as a tack. She could dissect any situation or person in 2 seconds flat. She spoke 10 languages. She was a true intellectual force, talented in ways that quietly shaped the world around her. And of course, her devotion to Andy was absolute. Fierce, tireless. She made sure Andy had what she needed, but Andy was always in charge. She carved out her own path, made her own decisions, and lived her life on her terms. From childhood through adulthood, my whole family stayed close with Andy. We visited her in the Hamptons, and she came to Boston whenever she could, health permitting, to celebrate events and holidays with all of us. We celebrated her wedding to Steve, surrounded by family, friends, and the children of her lung donor, one of the most moving and unforgettable gatherings. And after that, whenever she could, Andy would join us for family celebrations with Steve. He's a very funny guy, always has a good joke, and he often pushed through even when it meant staying up far past his famously early bedtime. We all appreciate it more than he probably knows. When Andy came to see us in Florida, she didn't just rest, she lived. She played pickleball and tennis, and often half bent over and twisted, but she played. She was determined, and she was pretty good. She taught me grill recipes. We made sure the kids knew how to cook, passing down recipes and stories like heirlooms. She moved through life with a mix of strength and mischief that I'll never forget. As Helly was nearing the end of her own life, she pulled Monica, my wife, and me aside and asked us to do something sacred, to stay close to Andy, as we always had, and to make sure she never felt alone, that she always knew that in addition to Steve and Larry, she had family that loved her. It was a beautiful request and an easy one because we did and we do. In Andy's last month, Monica and I joined Steve in helping care for her. Monica, for the record, was the quiet medical expert, whispering the medical details into my ear so I could sound like a smarter doctor than I am, while I mostly attended to feelings and working through some difficult decisions with Steve and Andy, so they wouldn't be alone. Steve, who had been Andy's side through everything, day in, day out, and was unwavering in his love and support, fierce, protective, and always present. Joining Steve and Andy in those final months was a privilege. It felt like a continuation of the closeness we'd all shared with Andy throughout her life. To end, I'll share one quiet moment in the hospital when Andy was explaining in full detail how her TPN, the tube feeding, worked. She explained about the proteins, the sugar, the insulin levels, the balance of it all. And with that classic spark in her eye, she looked at me and said, "Adi, this is the artisanal TPN." We laughed, and that was Andy. She was brilliant, hilarious, endlessly curious, and somehow making even her medical regimen feel like a small work of art. There's never enough time when someone like Andy leaves, but what she did with her time, that was extraordinary. She filled it with family, friends, food, movement, fight, and love. She was always pushing to survive, yes, but also to live. That's what I'll carry with me, and that's what we'll all carry forward. Thanks.
For those of you that were in attendance of Steve and Andy's wedding, I promise this will be less painful and a little shorter than what my father did that day. Some traits are not hereditary, I promise. When I was thinking of what I wanted to say today, I really wanted to tell a story that embodied who Andy was and something that everybody could relate to. And as I was brainstorming, I actually got pretty frustrated because I couldn't pick one. And it was driving me nuts, and I realized that the frustration wasn't because they didn't exist, but that there were so many and I couldn't choose. And I realized that frustration was a blessing, that you have so many wonderful memories with someone. It shows how special that person really is, and that's, truly what Andy is truly a special person. But it got me thinking, the thing that I loved most about her, or one of the things I loved most about her, was her sense of humor. She had one of those laughs that would start in her chest and into her throat, and she'd start to shake a little bit, and it was just, to coax it out was one of the best things ever. And I have this memory of being in the car as a child, and she was an adult by this time, and she said something to our father, and they laughed so hard. I remember, I don't get it. And she looked back at me and she goes, "It's a pun, one day you'll laugh." And when my brain finally came online, that became our thing. And I have to admit, most of them were groan-worthy and deserved booze. And sometimes they would elicit a belly laugh, and I don't know why this one stands out more than the others, but she was having back trouble maybe a decade ago, and she had seen an orthopedist, and she was talking to me and giving me the download, and it was her lower back, and I said, "Is it your L4, L5, what is it?" And she goes, "No, Larry, it's my sacrum." And there was this long pause. And I remember I said, "Andy, there's nothing sacrum anymore." And we laughed so freaking hard. It was so stupid. And that was our relationship. And we tried to do this to each other whenever we could. And Steve, I don't think you know this, but the day before she died, I went in to say goodbye, and Steve left the room, and he said all the things that you're supposed to say when you're not going to see someone again. It was this surreal and heavy moment. And I remember tears in my eyes, and I'm looking at her, and I couldn't help myself. And she was in and out, but she was president at this time. And I said, "Hey, Andy, I bet I know what your least favorite spice is." And she looked at me and she's like, "What?" I said, "Hospice." And I got one last laugh out of her. And my point being is, when I think of some clever phrase or play on words, I hope you guys think of Andy, because I know that's how I'm going to remember. So anyway, thank you.
Okay, you will hear soon that my English is not as fluent as my predecessor. My name is Dina Lobel, and as you probably know by now, I am second cousin to Andy. Adi and his brothers, Eran and Oded, are third cousins, and even the fourth generation is here, Liam and Adam, kids of my sons. They came to the memorial to tribute respect to Andy, because they loved her. By now, blood is already diluted. Fourth generation, it's not relationship of blood, it's a relationship of something else. And the something else was the family culture, which I want a little bit to tell about. And it is ties, values, spirit, and the love for good food. When Erwin, her grandfather, let me explain. Erwin and Annie was grandparents. Erwin was the brother of my grandmother. When Erwin served in the First World War, he wrote his sister, my grandmother, weekly. Mainly he asked for recipe to use the products that were available at that time. He was an officer in charge of a platoon, and he had to take care of the food and buy stuff, and not only food, other things too, but the food was the subject that he shared with his sister, my grandmother. And in all his letter, he wrote to his sister that he became so good in producing menus that he's going to write a book how to work in a field, and he will surprise his future wife. He wasn't married at that time. But then came Annie, and Annie was an amazing, amazing cook. She never allowed Erwin, who saw himself as a good menu, to the kitchen. The only thing he was allowed to do is boil water. Helly was also a great cook, and so was Andy. Andy was amazing. Even in my family, the same trade continues. Adi and Oded are very good cooks, and Adam, their son of Oded and Adi wife, like to cook and bake. He's a wonderful bake, and I love to eat. Our family always made the effort to stay in touch. My grandmother used to write to her brother and to her son. They had to be separated because of Hitler. And my grandmother went to Israel. This is where my accent is from. And Erwin and the family came to America. They never saw each other after they separated, but they continued to write every week. And this is why I knew all the stories about the new house in Hampton, about Andy, about the wedding of everything that happened was written in letters, and I was part of it. When I finished my army service, when I was 20, the very first thing I wanted to do was to come to America to visit the family. I had heard so many stories about them. Today, I'm 83 years old, and 63 years we have kept this relationship with my children, with my grandchildren, and everybody liked to come here. Why? Because we have a lot in common. The outdoors, the sport, the humor. But the most important thing that I think is very classical for the family is resilience. Andy was the queen of it. The strengths run to the family, and I'll tell you a little bit what I'm relating to. In March 1938, Andy, grandmother, Annie, it's Annie and Erwin, Helly, Andy, left Italy, where her husband, Erwin, was working in Ferragamo, in shoe and import and export of shoes. She came to Vienna to visit her grandparents, now her parents. Her parents lived in Grinzing. Grinzing is a small village outside Vienna, which is in a wineries, and they make the wine from the last year, and they sell it in taverns. She went to one of these Heuringer, what's called tavern, and she met friends from school. They happened to be Nazis. And one of them said to her, Anna, you must leave Vienna tonight. Tomorrow, Germany will be annexed to Austria, and you won't be able to return to your husband. She left that very night and left Helly with her grandparents because she couldn't organize everything. She wanted her also to finish school. Heli at that time was 8 or 10 years old, something like this. Few days later, Heli was sent by train back to Italy with luggage and with a trunk of luggage and a huge cross on her chest, so that the Nazis will not be suspicious that she's Jewish. Life became, for this family, it became increasingly unstable. The family was forced to leave Italy when Mussolini aligned with Hitler. Because they spoke German, people were thinking that they are close to the Nazis. They had to leave French, and they had to leave, they left for Spain, and from Spain they went to Portugal. And in Portugal they were waiting for a few months to get a visa to America, which was very hard at that time. In all these places they left. Now this family, think of it, left their home, left their family, left their friends, left their job, left a good life in Vienna, and became refugees. Homeless, and they had to be, and were pushed from country to country. They had to gather the schmattes, the long belonging, the small belonging, and move. Yet, even in those foreign countries, they tried to focus on beauty. In every country, they visited galleries, which was a big deal, and concerts, exhibition, tours of the city, hiking, and they learned the languages. This trait that Heli acquired in this terrible time led her to this successful career that she had in film dubbing, because she knew all this language. She could work in dubbing the films. She was able to turn the instability and the terrible childhood she had into a source of strength and creativity. A few weeks after Heli left Vienna, her grandparents, Anna's parents, were forced to leave their home and they were sent to the concentration camp. Of course, they never came out from there. Despite all of this, the family endured, and Andy, who carried that spirit, though she lived for many years with a chronic illness, she never gave up. She stayed joyful, sporty, funny, and big consumer of art. Her lust for life was admirable. I loved Annie very much. I respected her for all her energy and her endurance and her toughness and joke and fun. We saw each other every time that I came to New York City, and eventually wrote to each other. We planned to go this year to Vienna for a trip for fruits, which with Steve, which unfortunately didn't happen. With her demise, I lost the last ties to my nuclear family, and I saw in Andy the cherry of the, I don't know, the epitome of what it is, and I really miss her, not only for what she was, but what I lost because she is gone. Thank you.
Just 3 or 4 more minutes here. I wanted to thank some people. First, thank all of you for coming. A lot of you came from far away. California, Washington, Arizona, Florida. Israel. People. But they didn't come for me. They came for Andrea. And thank you on behalf of Andrea. But also, I wanted to thank some specific people. Adi Lobel, from the diagnosis to the end, he was with us every day, and it was very helpful to Andrea to have his expertise. He would intercede with doctors, he would take part in meetings with them to discuss future procedures, explain them to us, inject humor. And we knew it was Monica, actually, but let him pretend. But thanks, Monica and Leon and Noah, for giving him up for that time, because at the very end, when I didn't have Andrea to guide me anymore, and I was making bad decisions, but he helped me. And thank you, Adi. I want to thank my family, my sister Miriam, my sister Anne Marie and her husband John, and their sons Max and Sam, when I had to go to the hospital full time. They just came in, they moved into the apartment. I didn't have to worry about a thing. They took care of everything. And it was so grateful for that. Thank you. They dropped everything. And I want to thank her brother Larry. Andrea was having all of this work done at her house in Hampton Bays, and there was installations and electricians, inspections. Larry went out there. Larry was there, but he went and he gave them his contact number, he directed them, he managed it. And if you've ever had that kind of work done, it's a lot of work. Thank you, Larry. I want to thank the sisterhood of Andrea, which is all of you. She was wealthy with friends. There's Karen and Viv and Lisa and Zena, Kimmy, Janelle, Elora out there in internet land, Liz, Suzanne, all of you. You were just constantly there for us with support and calls and visits, and thank you, because it was palpable. We felt it. Thank you. For this event, I have to point to Mary McLaughlin. This whole thing happened because of her. She made it happen. The venue, the timing, the food, the everything. This all is thanks to Andrea. And a lot of you have helped in individual ways. There's Kevin came and gave her excellent physical therapy there at the hospital. Kevin, who did the slideshow, thank you, and was present for us and everything. Most of all, though, I want to thank Andrea. You know, I want to thank Andrea for marrying a schlub like me, for trusting me, for teaching me, for her cooking, for giving me all of you. I want to thank her for making me a better person. And as I told her when she came, and when she said, you know, she was done fighting, that she was ready. It was hard. But I told her, I said, you know, we got married in a Catholic church. And if the Catholics are right, and I think we are, we're still going to be married in heaven. So enjoy your break. I'll be there soon enough to start annoying you again. But again, thank you all. And you know, we're running a little early, but I think maybe they're ready for us out there. So please, let's go and enjoy the presence of Andrea.
We're at Space. Welcome to Space at the Grand Space Theater.
Hi, I'm Zena, and I've known Andrea for over 30 years. We used to work together, and Andrea was literally a sister to me, and a rock for myself. She was an inspiration. I'm so thankful for the years that I was able to be her friend. I'm thankful to her donor family because you gave her a gift, and that gift was also a gift to me and everyone who loved her. Andrea was a remarkable person that I cherish and miss forever. And she was cultured, a great cook, a great hostess. In fact, when I met Larry, I said to him there were just certain movies I had to see with Andrea because she was my cultural go-to person, and she was so wise, and she was very smart, and I always enjoyed talking about culture with her. So I love Andy. I miss Andy, and so I consider myself lucky to have been part of her world for the time that I know.
Hi, Andrea. I missed you a lot. I've missed our dinners in Mexican restaurants and Mediterranean restaurant, and talking to you about tennis and what's going on in your life. You're a wonderful, wonderful person, and I'll think of you forever and ever.
Hi guys, I'm Karen. I really don't know what to say other than Andy is the epitome of grit. That's when I think of her, I think of somebody that's incredibly strong, feisty, has such a zest for life. There's really no words. There's really, she was bigger than life, is all I could say. And she, from the moment I met her 35 years ago, we were like sisters. Miss her terribly, as I know everybody does. But we're going to carry her with us forever.
We're here with the Lobels, missing Andy very much, came to celebrate her life. Andy, we love you. Steve, we love you. And we're happy to be here sharing beautiful memories.
You think of her all the time. I think of her, and she, even though we weren't in contact every day, all the time, she was so much a part of everything we did. And being next to her was always a very special and memorable. You never forget hanging out with Andy, and we're gonna miss her a lot.
I think I said what I could, but there's a big void in our life right now because she's not here, and it's very surreal to imagine that we won't be able to just be in her presence again, enjoy a meal, enjoy her good company, her humor. And I think today that I learned that she was called marionette or puppet was great because it's exactly how she kind of expressed herself when she laughed. So from the belly, and all her arms and limbs would dance around. It was great to be here, be with the family and with Steve and with all the fans that are just so lovely. So thank you.
I think there is a joke between me. I'm Adi, Oded's wife, and there is a joke about with me and Oded. I think I knew how important Andy is for Oded. First time when Adam was born, and like 10 days after, Andy and Steve got married, and Oded just left everything and came to the wedding. So we're still laughing about this wedding once in a while, and that's it. Yeah, we love you.
Andy, if you're listening, you got all three brothers here. You got some nephews. We love you. And by the way, Steve, we love you too.
Andy, it was great seeing you throughout the time I've grown up. You were always amazing to be with, funny, passionate. So many good things have been said about you, and I don't think I can top them, but we do love you.
We love you and we miss you. Always a man of few words.
This is so uncomfortable. We're dying. We have a bright light, but we're completely doing it because this is for Andrea, right? And so we were just asked to say a few words, and we were like, oh my God, because all the most perfect things were just said. However, when Lisa and I were just
she's here with us. And I want to say I was but this is all her love and her energy.
Yes. And it's one thing that I've thought about is I have like my own personal guilt that I went through a gap where I was having children and I didn't see her as much. And it's like, when I talk to other people, a lot of people have that same story, but it's like once you came back into her life, there was no judgment. It was like no time had passed. And for me, I feel like it was a gift that I got to reconnect with her during COVID and cook with her at cooking classes where she taught me how to cut an onion, and I had no idea she was that good. Even though the chef threw away my food because I burnt it, even though I wanted it. Scary. And she convinced me to get a dog, and it's just it's like perfect.
And she brought us all here together. This was because she wanted us to all be here because we haven't seen each other and we love each other and we're always saying we have to get together and we just don't. So Andrea, we're here because of you, and all of these connections are going to grow and we're going to be celebrating you more because we're going to see each other more. Thank you. Thank you for your life. Thank you for what you show us and giving us so much. You're such an inspiration.
I just want to say, Anna is the best friend anyone could ask for. I've known her for 58 years. We've grown together, had sleepovers together, told our secrets together. She was just the best friend. We never knew about the cystic fibrosis because she didn't make it a major issue. She was one of my kids, and I just loved her. See you on the other side. Love you. Okay, Lorenzo. She's just the most amazing friend you could ever ask for. And now I'm going to eat some flan in her memory because that's what we used to do. We used to walk up to the bodega on 101st Street in Broadway and have flan. Thank you. I love you.
Hi, I'm Kathy Dwyer. I used to be the manager of the New York Organ Network. Andrea is one of my stars, my inspiration. She loved food. She hated me playing tennis. But boy, we could swim and fight. We will miss you, Andrea, forever. Thank you so much, and Andrea, I look forward to seeing you in heaven.
Thanks everybody for coming out to celebrate Andrea. She deserves this celebration and so many more, and she will always be in our hearts, and we'll celebrate her for the rest of our lives.